So in this video, I want to talk about how to process what's happening with the counteroffensive. And it's a really somewhat maddening thing because you don't know what information to trust and you don't know who's right and you don't know all the facts and you really, your heart's there and you want to be supportive of Ukraine. And I get all those things. But here's a trick. So somebody sent me this email, and they said just because a source has been proven to be a disseminator of BS is not proof that this is BS. When you've got the truth on your side, there's no need to lie or exaggerate. Okay, and that's a fair statement. His name is Thomas, and he sent me this, and he sent me a bunch of links, but he sent me the links from Military Summary, and I don't find Military Summary historically to be all that accurate. Not when I compare and triangulate, and this is why you triangulate, but not when I compare and triangulate with the ISW and reporting from Ukraine and other sources, the deep state map, things along these lines. But he's right, though. When your truth is on your side, there's no need to lie or exaggerate. And if you are exaggerating, what's that tell you? He said, resist the urge. And I think this is good advice, even though he's on the opposite side of this equation and he's interacting with me. But I think it's good advice. Resist the urge to look to counter it all, and instead, as an exercise, assume that it's vastly more accurate than not, notwithstanding legit clips of RU claiming John Deere's are leopards or drone strikes are dummy leopards. Okay, so I get that. But I don't know. So we want to try to look at it and see what could be, not look for evidence that is going to make us feel good, right? But then we have a problem with the source, and I have a problem with Military Summary as a source. Historically, I don't find it to be nearly as good as reporting from Ukraine. Reporting from Ukraine is just an excellent channel. They've got good information. They update regularly. It's succinct. I can't say enough good things about reporting from Ukraine. And now, when you see someone on either side, and this could be like on the Russian side, like Jackson Hinkle, who I showed you yesterday and the day before, this guy, he's always, look, Russia hits back, Putin can't lose. And when you see the hyperbolicness, you can almost always discount them. Now, he's hyperbolic for a reason, because he's putting out 5 videos a day because this is how he's making his money, apparently. And I'm not exactly sure, because he's been demonetized, but he's got Patreon or something. I don't know how all that kind of stuff works. But I think he's motivated a little differently. And then you have the deep state map. Now, the deep state map will be helpful. And as we look at the deep state map, I rolled it back to June 10th, and you can see the deep state map changing, right? Look at that. I mean, there's movement, there's progress. What you can see is that the territory has been gained. What you can't see are how dear a price they paid for that territory. So we know more than 100 kilometers has been recaptured. We don't know how many people died in pursuit of that 100 kilometers or on either side. You don't necessarily know how many Ukrainians or how many Russians. So we have to think through things with a grain of salt. When you see somebody, and when I was talking about the hyperbolicness, this is what I mean by the hyperbolic kind of thing. And you would just automatically discount this kind of hyperbolicness. And by the way, look at your source. Oliver Stone is not a military source that is useful, or at any rate, let's hear what he has to say.
Obviously, Russia is winning the war. They're actually kicking ass, but we don't know that in the West. True.
You have so much propaganda especially from the Western side. It's so one-sided that everything becomes an anti-Russian issue. Obviously, they're the stronger country. They're winning the war. You have no realization of what's really going on because there's been no military honesty. It's a completely corrupt process in the United States. They're actually kicking. But we don't know that in the West. You have to run everything through the White House because the White House is fighting the war, and they're telling you the Russians are evil, brutal, all of stuff. But it's not fair because we're not getting the truth. The American people are blind. They're led by sheep to a conclusion.
I'm not sure what he would consider to be the truth, right? So that's a problem, right? Let's go to RT. Here's what Putin told journalists about Russia's goals in Ukraine conflict. This was just 2 days ago. Moscow's objectives remain unchanged. Well, we know that they've changed multiple times, but they're saying they remain unchanged. The demilitarization of Ukraine is happening, with Kyiv's troops now entirely reliant on Western weapons, equipment, and ammunition, unable to produce anything locally. Well, that was pretty much the case when they invaded, which is why they invaded, because that's what bullies do. Progress of Ukraine's offensive. Kyiv launched a large-scale offensive on June 4th, using troops and equipment provided by the West, but without success in any sector. Well, we don't know that exactly. We know that RT is saying that, but we don't know that for a fact. What we do know is that they've taken 100 square kilometers back, about 38 miles at least, and they are taking casualties. How heavy are the casualties? Well, they say, this is Putin saying, they're taking heavy casualties, greater than ours, by a factor of 10. I'm hard-pressed to believe that they're taking it by a factor of 10. And Putin hasn't exactly been the source of veracity. Why Russia is not like Ukraine? We are a government of laws. They behave like a regime based on terror, says Putin. Okay, so that statement right there would make me discount this statement right here. Now, maybe I shouldn't, but it just seems that if you're going to lie about one thing, why won't you lie about something else? And now, I say lie, but let me also back up. They really believe that they're the good guys, and that's the scary thing in this. Will there be another mobilization? More troops will be needed if there's a decision to march on Kyiv, which he's alluded to, but not under the current circumstances. On top of the 300,000 reservists called up last fall, more than 150,000 people have signed up for contract service at a rate of 9,500 per week. Now, some of those are getting mobile draft notices, but nonetheless, let's assume that that's the case. And then finally, on the role of industry in the conflict, the Russian industry has increased production up to tenfold for certain systems. They don't tell us what those systems are, but up to tenfold for those, while some companies operating in 3 shifts. Meanwhile, Ukraine's capabilities have been almost entirely eliminated. And that's probably true because you keep bombing them. But they're also getting supplies from the West, so that's kind of a moot point. Now, if you want a good source, I would go to the ISW. The ISW and the British Ministry of Defense do an awesome job on this. Here's our update as of June 14th. Ukrainian and Russian sources additionally reported that there's heavy fighting that continued in Donetsk Oblast, particularly around Makarivka. Okay, now, when they agree on something, that's good. You can at least say, okay, they both agree that they're fighting there. Russian mill bloggers speculated that heavy rain and poor weather in southern Ukraine may have decreased the tempo. Okay, that's also a fair point. Russian sources claim that Ukrainian forces struck a division of the 20th Combined Arms Army near Crimea, Luhansk Oblast, while they were waiting for a commander of the 20th to give a speech, prompting typical discontent among mill bloggers. And one mill blogger even suggested that the reported Ukrainian HIMARS strike killed around 100 Russian personnel and wounded another 100. Although, now this is where you find good reporting, although the ISW has not observed any visual confirmation of the strike or its aftermath. So because they're saying, as a caveat, we can't prove that. Now, if they can prove it, they say it, and they don't have the caveat. And if they can't prove it, they'll say that. And that's good journalism. Mill bloggers rightly criticize the poor decision to concentrate a large number of Russian forces within range of Ukrainian fire for such a long time. One mill blogger even called for the responsible commanders to be shot in front of their formations, whether they are colonels or generals. Wow, that's something. Okay. Russian sources disseminated conflicting reports about the condition of Russian Duma deputy and commander of the Chechen branch, Adam, I can't pronounce his name, on June 14th, but the ISW has not observed any visual evidence to confirm or deny. And I think that's where we are. We don't have enough to say this way or that way, and that's just the fog of war, and that's where we're going to be for a while. Meanwhile, Russian forces are conducting missile and drone strikes across Ukraine as they have before. 6 Kh-22 cruise missiles, 4 Caliber cruise missiles, and 10 Shahed, which is actually pretty low for their normal strikes. But they're firing at the population. They're not firing at the Ukrainian army, which is a very strange thing to be doing when the Ukrainian army is right there. And if you could do it, you would do it. So where does that leave us? I think Georgia and Ukraine Matters, another excellent channel that I highly recommend, said this, and I think this is a good place to end. For some reason, a lot of pro-Ukrainian accounts are spreading fakes and conspiracy theories have been popping up lately. I believe it's another consequence of the information vacuum. Be very aware. If you're not sure about the source, remember the rule of thumb, video or pic or it never happened. And that's not a bad rule, unless you're dealing with something that has great veracity like the ISW. So no, Ukraine troops are not around Tomok, and no, Poloi is not encircled. The information is completely false. Maybe this is done to confuse Russians, but from what I'm seeing, it's mostly the people that are confusing themselves. But in reality, the most confusing place on this battlefield right now is in the area of Novodonetsky, where the 37th Brigade is fighting the 37th Brigade, and good luck figuring that out. Look, we're all subject to the fog of war. Don't worry about what's happened today. And let me give you an analogy. A number of years ago, I have a number of children, a lot of children, and I was tired of being just tired and overweight a bit, and so I just decided I'm going to eat right. And so I started eating clean and I lost 40 pounds. And as I was losing the weight, I would track my calories and I would step on the scale regularly. And I never believed what I saw on the scale that day, but I did believe the trend. So week over week, as I saw the trend, I could hang my hat on that. That's what's actually happening. But one day I'm up 2 pounds and another day I'm down 3 or whatever. I mean, it rotated and vacillated. Just maybe it's water weight or whatever. Don't worry about what's happening today. Worry about the long-term trend line and you'll be a lot safer. I hope that's somewhat comforting, and thank you for listening to me. Thank you for the likes, the shares, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.